Good afternoon, folks. How you doing? This is Glenn Glasper, and affectionately known as Mr. Dollar Out of a Dime, and this is the Real Life Real Estate Investing Show, where we talk about real life real estate situations, but we bring you real life real estate solutions. And today, I have none other than Mr. Charlie Fowler, the Mountain Man, who's going to talk to us about how we protect ourselves as investors in the legal world, because you guys know, of course you know, if you're doing contracts, you're doing any type of negotiating, you want to have someone to protect you. And Mr. Charlie's going to tell us how we can do that. So thank you guys for tuning in. For those of you that are joining us, go ahead and share this in your news feeds. Go ahead and like it, send us some hearts, send us some comments. We want to make sure we take the opportunity to get your questions answered for those of you that are joining us. So without further ado, Mr. Charlie, thank you for joining us today, sir. We certainly appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Glenn. I've been a big fan for years, and of course we've been friends for a long time.
Yes,
and
indeed.
We've been in the investment community here in Atlanta, both for many, many years.
Yes. And we've been trying to get you on the show for a while, but you're a busy man, and I understand that. When you're doing as much as you're doing, it makes sense to keep yourself moving. So I certainly appreciate you taking the time.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
I appreciate it. So, Mr. Charlie, tell us about some of the history of LegalSheild and how you got involved, and some history of Mr. Fowler. Tell us about yourself.
Well, yeah, I'm a Marietta native, so been here my whole life, although I did a lot of traveling in my younger days. But I've always been kind of an entrepreneur, and about 20 years ago, I really fell in love with the idea of real estate investing, which I don't know if everyone watching this understands this, but at the time I spent my first 15 or 20 years didn't understand that you could actually own more than one house at a time.
Wow.
Right? I thought, well, to get a house, you get a mortgage. They're only going to give you one mortgage because you only have one job, and so you'd have to sell one house to get another house.
Yes, that's amazing. I mean, it's a wonder that you say that, because I imagine there's lots of people that are still thinking the same thing.
Well, and when we as investors talk to our relatives or our friends, some of them are stuck in that mindset.
Yes.
And they just don't understand that there's an unlimited amount of money and an unlimited amount of properties out there and a tremendous demand. And so I don't have to tell you that. I know. You know that, but so I've been investing for about 20 years, and I spent my first 7 or 8 years doing really almost everything you could do. So I was a general purpose investor, if you will, and most residential. I bought some on the courthouse steps. I was a landlord. I had 7 properties, mostly out in Paulding and Cobb counties, and I did renovations. I did historic projects in Marietta. I did some raw land deals and some lot splits.
Wow.
And I even moved half a dozen houses. So I did a commercial development up in Kennesaw where we actually moved turn-of-the-century homes in and set up a little office park there, which is called Fuller's Chase in Kennesaw. It's a 7-acre park up there.
Wow. So you had to lift the house off the foundation.
Literally, you've never seen anything until you've seen an 1,800 square foot ranch going down Highway 41 through Kennesaw at 35 miles an hour with a guy sitting on the roof. So I'm sure you've seen it.
Yeah, I've seen that before.
And I can just say this before you ask: there are a lot easier ways to make money in real estate.
I can imagine.
Than that. But so I was busy until about 2005. I was just doing all kind of investment projects and holding down a job like most people. And and another investor that I was working on a deal with in early 2005. We were working on a sandwich lease deal where, and we were the meat in the middle on the sandwich lease.
Right.
So he said, "Well, I'll have my attorneys work all this up, and because it won't cost anything." And I thought, that's something new I haven't ever heard. Because up until then, what I had done is what a lot of people do. My legal strategy was that I had a few attorneys that I had done some business with, and I would ask them for favors and try to get some free help from them. And then I had some friends who were attorneys, and I would ask them to look over things and give me advice about things. I would try to avoid paying that $200 or $300 an hour as much as possible. And then I had some friends who just thought they were attorneys.
Yeah.
And your aunt's sister's friend who's got 1 year of law school.
Right.
And then there's all the real estate gurus or trainers.
Yes.
And so I would try to get legal help from all of those. And then there was always Google. So that was my strategy, to avoid paying lawyers as much as possible. And so when this guy told me that he knew of a service that allowed regular folks to have access to top attorneys and really control the cost, I was interested.
Right.
And so, long story short, I became a member. That was in 2005. Later, I was recommended it to so many people that they contacted me and said, "Why don't you help us in the business side of it?" And I said, "Well, I'm recommending it anyway, so why not?"
Why not? Yeah.
And so that's how I got into the business side. But I can tell you that in the last, that's been 13 years.
Wow.
The name of the company has changed, as you know, and but still we only have about 10 to 15% of the population that know that it exists as an option.
Absolutely.
So I've used it actually more than 400 times in the last 13 years.
Wow, wow. Yeah, I've had it for nearly 20 years now. And I'll share my story. I got started with it when I got started in real estate in Atlanta, when I moved to Atlanta back in 2002. A gentleman I worked with at the time when I had a job told me that I could, since I was going to be doing real estate anyway, I could have someone review my contract for me at no cost. I said, how is that possible?
Right.
Because I had an attorney in Detroit. He was charging me $200 an hour before I moved to Atlanta to start investing. But he gave me a break because he knew I was green, so he gave me a break on the price. So I'm thinking, that's what I'll do when I move to Atlanta. He said, no, you don't want to do that. You want to have somebody on retainer. I'm thinking, retainer, I think that's going to be quite expensive.
Right.
But he explained to me, no, for a very low cost, I could have an attorney on standby for anything that I needed them for. I was like, wow, okay. I'm a big-time real estate investor. I'll figure out, I'll get some attorneys on my side. And to make my story is, make my long story long. So I started using them early on and start sending them over my contracts. They reviewed them and got back to me, and I was like, wow. And it only took maybe a day, or less for them to get back to me.
Sorry about that.
You get that?
There
Oh,
we
okay.
go. There we go.
And so what I did after that, and I found out, okay, well, I can use them for my contract. So I'm like, okay, it works. But then I got a new car a few years later, and I got this new car, nice car, had this big motor in it, the Chrysler 300 with the Hemi in it.
It went fast.
It went fast. I'm still young, I want to try it out. That car, in the first year and a half, I believe I got 13 speeding tickets.
Oh my gosh.
13 speeding tickets.
Wow.
And now I'm not saying to try this at home, but because of LegalSheild, none of them ever hit my driving record. They disputed them. They, got the points lowered, and I was able to. Of course, I had to pay the fine, but none of those tickets hit my driving record. So, according to the state of Georgia, I have an excellent driving record.
Oh, well, yeah.
All from the help of LegalSheild.
And I don't have to tell you, you've been a LegalSheild member longer than I have, and so the stories are what are interesting.
Yes, yes.
I just remember one last summer. I won't get into too many driving stories because it's a real estate show, but I did not know.
Hope no police are listening. Don't try to pull me over after the show.
I did not know till this summer that 25 miles an hour over in North Carolina is a misdemeanor. It is not a traffic ticket.
Right. Right.
You don't want to ask me how I learned that, but I will say this. That particular ticket, which was last June, ended up being a improper equipment ticket, which means broken tail light.
Right.
So thanks to that attorney in Charlotte, North Carolina, who went to court and discussed this with the judge, and they determined that since I had a clean driving record in Georgia also, that they should give me a break on this one.
Yes, yes. It's amazing. I showed up to court one time. We could tell these stories all day. Showed up to court one time. I think it was for improper turn ticket. And the gentleman called me up and he said, how do you plead? I said, well, my attorney's not here yet. And he said, you have an attorney for this? because they were really going to try to give me a high fine and point to my license. So I said, yeah, my attorney's on his way. And he said, you have an attorney for this? I said, yeah. I mean, don't most people? But of course, I know that most people don't, because most people aren't aware of what you can do with having an attorney, you know. And the judge, he didn't want to bother with it, you know, having an attorney show up and go through all this. He said, we'll just reduce the fine and we'll throw it out. I was like, wow, just because I told you I had an attorney.
So did the attorney ever get there?
Oh, yeah, he came. He came, yeah. And the other benefit of having an attorney is you get out of court quicker.
Oh, isn't that the truth? Because they take the first people they take care of in the morning are the guys in the orange jumpsuits.
Yes.
And then the next people are the people that have attorneys.
Yes.
But,
yes.
And you know, if all that LegalSheild did was help you when things go wrong in your life, or when you hit a bump in the road, with the IRS, or with a speeding ticket, or with a landlord, or with a tenant, or with a deal, or a lawsuit, then it would be awesome. It would be, then it would be like insurance. But you and I both know that one of the keys to being wealthy is getting advice and making good decisions.
Definitely.
And so that's why wealthy people always look to their attorneys for advice about legal matters. And truly wealthy people would never consider signing anything without having their attorney look it over.
That's correct.
And so I like that side of it even better. And when I say I've used it 400 times, I know some people immediately are going to think, well, he's had 400 problems. No, they wrote one letter for me once that made me $50,000 on a real estate deal.
Wow.
So it's about opportunities and making money and smoothing out your life so that it flows more smoothly, and you don't have to spend time dealing with issues when you could be making money.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you said something that's very profound, and I want to make sure that people understand that. You know, and that's a lot of things that people misunderstand. They think you only have to have an attorney when something is wrong. But the benefit that I've also had is being able to just pick up the phone and call and ask a question about a potential deal that I'm thinking about doing. And to have that legal advice is invaluable. Like you said, I mean, I've made tons of money being able to have someone on my side to just call and ask, what do you think, even about, you know, a contract that I'm doing with someone else that I'm, you know, want to make some things, turn some things around in the contract. I sent it over to them to review it, and they got back to me and said, well, you need to take this out or add this, and, you know, this makes sense. I said, wow, and I'm only paying, can I tell them what I'm paying?
Sure.
I can't believe this. Well, because I've had it for so long.
And LegalSheild has never raised rates on an existing customer.
Right, yeah, yeah. I only pay $17 a month.
Wow.
$17 a month. I mean, and I've been paying it for, I forget that I even have to pay it. You know, it comes out of my account. I've been paying it for, like I said, 20 years. And it's paid for itself 100 times over, you know, for the things that I've saved on, the things that I've been able to prevent, you know, as it pertains to getting involved in a real estate deal. And I will continue to have it for as long as I can, you know. I'm sure they're going to be around forever.
Well, you know, there are 2 or 3 questions that always come up when people first learn about this. Some people will say, I don't need any lawyers because I'm a good person, and I can't even remember the last time I used a lawyer.
Yes.
And now that's not so common in our business because we're all constantly using attorneys. But that's sort of like somebody saying, I'm really healthy, so I don't need health insurance.
Absolutely.
Right? And so the second thing I hear sometimes is, well, I'm so smart, and I'm kind of all lawyered up already. So because my friend's cousin's aunt is a lawyer, and I got this guy in the neighborhood who's a lawyer, and so, you know, I'm good. So they'll say, well, I'm good. I'm all lawyered up, which is sort of like saying, well, you know, I know a doctor and I know a nurse, and there's one that lives in my neighborhood, so I don't need health insurance.
You know, that's funny. We have several nurses in my family, but we still go to the doctor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The one comment that I hear sometimes, which is it's legitimate to ask the question, is how can this possibly be true? How can you possibly pay $17, or now it's about $25, $35 if you have a business activity with it? How can you pay $20 to $40 a month and expect to even talk to a lawyer, has he even passed the bar, or is he drinking at the
Right.
bar, right? Or is he behind bars, or he used to be behind bars, right? So the question that we do have to answer once in a while is, how's that possible? And of course, the reason it's possible is why you can get $100,000 heart surgery but not have to pay the surgeon $100,000.
Absolutely.
Because of the
Absolutely.
risk pool concept. There are
Yes.
in Georgia about 250,000 people paying a little bit of money into the LegalSheild system, and so the law firm and you know this, Glenn, but we dedicate one large law firm in every state, and we
Yes.
give them a third of all the money we collect, and they are responsible for the legal care and happiness of all those people. And so
Wow.
the money we give them adds up to about $500,000 a month. So the question is not, what kind of lawyer can I get for $17 or $20? It's what kind of a law firm can you get for $500,000 a month?
That's
And that usually
point.
answers that question.
That's a great point. And I don't want to make sure we get back. Well, actually, I want to acknowledge some people that are joining us. Mr. Jeffrey Love, always a great supporter of the show. Thank you for watching. He says, "Hi, Glenn and guest." That's. I guess we'll do another identification. This is Mr. Charlie Fowler, here, representative of LegalSheild. We have Mr. Dennis Norton. Thank you for watching. He said, "This is fascinating." Good morning, Olivia. Mr. Alan Strong, Anwar Khalil Williams is watching. Thank you guys for joining us. Don't forget to share, guys, and we would be happy if you give us some likes so we can make sure people get this information. So, and also, guys, don't forget, if you have any questions for Mr. Fowler, make sure you guys put those questions below so we can get your questions answered as it pertains to, how you can benefit from LegalSheild. So, we were talking about the benefits of having something like this as an ongoing service. Now, we know we have access to attorneys and things like that, and those are some of the major benefits, or that is one of the major benefits. What are some of the other things that LegalSheild offers that could be beneficial to the people?
Well, we have the basic concept is access to lawyers
Yes.
that have already been well paid, quality lawyers that have already been well paid to take care of you. So they don't have a dog in the fight. There's not a money motive in their advice, which for most of us who've dealt with lawyers know that that's pretty uncommon, because
Right.
they have to pay their bills too, and so they're going to look and see what kind of compensation they're going to get for helping. But that falls off the table when it comes to the LegalSheild system, because, as I said, if you have a law firm, and we have a 150-man law firm here in Georgia, right down the street on Jimmy Carter Boulevard.
Wow.
And they take phone. They have 20 people there just to answer the phone for LegalSheild.
Yes.
Now, you can walk in the front door of that law firm and pay full price, because they have thousands. They're one of the biggest ones in Gwinnett County. But if you are a LegalSheild member, everything is either going to be zero cost, that is 100% covered, or at the worst, it's going to be 25% covered.
Right.
So that's the basic concept. But you're absolutely right. There's a lot more than that, and you and I have been working now for some time to put together a bundle of services
Yes.
that's really specific for the investors, and not just the two of us, but a lot of people here in Atlanta. And so we have a kind of a business owners bundle, and it includes 10 different services, and some of them are amazing. But I'll just focus in on one or two that are of a special value to investors.
And I'll say this before you get into that. One of the things that we talked about before is one of the major reasons that a lot more investors are not have not taken advantage of what LegalSheild offers is because they don't understand it. They don't know the benefits. So that's where I'm going to make sure we lead into that with that for the people that don't understand that.
Absolutely, and I'm going to try to keep this very concise, but Glenn and I absolutely agree that the only reason an investor doesn't have LegalSheild for $40 a month or something about that is that no one's ever explained it to them properly.
Yes.
Because if you understand it, then it's a no-brainer. There is no contract involved. It proves itself every time you use it. And if it ever wasn't worth it, then all those people would cancel.
Yes.
And so it's sort of self-regulating, but it's
Right.
been getting better and better. About 10 years ago, maybe 20, we added 24/7 emergency coverage, which means if you have teenagers and they get into a situation, just a traffic situation or an accident, or your wife gets in an accident nationwide, you can have an attorney who's been paid to help you on the phone within a few seconds. So that's one thing we added. Then about 10 years ago, we added an identity theft and fraud protection, because back then identity theft, nobody even knew what it meant. And so that's a very strong component. So that's around-the-clock protection and monitoring of all the databases, the dark web, all those ads you see on TV, all that's built into this bundle that we've set up. And it's all delivered to you now on apps on your phone. So you literally have an app on your phone where you see your credit score, you see alerts when any of your information shows up. You have a big red button for that after-hours legal help. You've got a series of other buttons. You've even got one button, this would be good for you, Glenn, if you've used it, where you just touch that button and take a picture of your traffic ticket.
I was going to say that, yeah.
And then hit a button, and even if it's on the weekend, it's uploaded to the traffic department at the law firm, and the lawyer's going to call you Monday and get that court appearance staffed. And you didn't mention, but it's important to know, we're very busy people, and especially if you got a ticket out of state, you don't even have to appear when you have a lawyer.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, you're right. I had several tickets out of state.
Yeah,
not saying that because I'm proud.
And that would also be true for other things, not just traffic. So if a lot of investors, they may inherit property, or they may have moved, they may have a rental property in another state. Most law firms can't help you in multiple states because the lawyers have not passed the bar in those states. And so LegalShield's the only way I really know to have a national footprint as far as legal help. So if you take a trip to California and something happens there, and then you find that someone there sued you because you stepped on their child's foot or something, what are you going to do?
Right.
I just don't know how to handle that if you don't have LegalSheild.
Absolutely. And it's a good point that you mentioned, and I think someone has asked that question. Someone says, is the lawyer located in your area, or do you choose the lawyer from a list?
Yeah, long ago, LegalShield's been around about 46 years, and in the early days, they would go out and make deals with lawyers to be on their list. And so you'd think that's how it works, but that's not. We found that the quality wasn't there.
Right.
And you would be if you were a discount customer for that lawyer, you'd be a discount customer for that lawyer, and you don't want to be the discount customer of a lawyer. You'll be the last thing he or she's concerned about. So about 25 years ago, they changed the whole model, and they designated one major law firm in every state. We call that the provider law firm, and we give them all the money.
Right.
And they are responsible to keep the standards and the quality up. They have to be of a certain level. The average experience, I get this question a lot too, must be beginner lawyers for that price. The average experience is 22 years.
Right.
And you're not even allowed to speak to an attorney with less than 5 years experience.
Wow.
And you don't deal with paralegals either, or assistants, just with attorneys. So the answer to that question is the primary care provider, if you will, is one per state. Florida has two. But they have a network of lawyers, and I would say 80% of what you need a lawyer for is going to be handled there with that firm, because that's where all the experts are. That's where we have the tightest control over the quality of the service.
Right.
But locally, they manage a network of lawyers across the state. So it's a two-tier system. There's I call it mothership, and then there's all the other attorneys around the state. That's how we're able to deliver it. I mean, imagine having a 6-hour service guarantee of an attorney even calling you back. I mean, I've had people buy the service. They said, I have this service because the lawyers call you back.
Oh, yes.
And I always tell people how many times you try to get your lawyer on the phone on a Friday afternoon. That is not an easy thing to do. But with LegalSheild, those lawyers don't go home until 80 to 90% of the people have been called back and spoken to at the end of the day. So quality very high, geographic footprint is very broad, and then of course it's reciprocal in all states.
And that's, I think I had a plan some years ago, back when I was in Michigan, where there was a list that
mm-hmm.
you had to call on, and I could never get anyone. And that was one of the major things. So when I heard about it again, the guy explained to me that was something totally different. So I was like,
mm-hmm.
wow, this is very fascinating.
A lot of trial and error because, having lawyers perform and give good customer service is different than having doctors do it. And, of course, we've had 100 years of experience getting some kind of a system that's supposed to work for medical. Mm-hmm. But this company has really been the pioneers for bringing customer service and efficiency to the legal system.
That's great. So. Dennis asked the question, please post links and information concerning these services. We certainly will. We certainly will get that to you. One question Jeffrey Love asked is, what's the cost to get this? I imagine that's what the dollar sign's for.
We have a bundle, and I think I can show you this real quickly. I won't
save that to the end to make sure they stick around for the rest of the show.
Okay.
No, we go.
Well, I was just going to say, there's if you don't mind, it does show the price here, but it's around $40 a month is what it costs for this entire bundle. Now, Glenn when he says 17, he's really talking about one of the things on here, which is his legal plan from years back. So it's roughly about $40 a month for the whole bundle. That includes business services, family services, the identity theft and fraud services, and a number of other ones that are listed here. You probably can't read it. It's probably too small, so I will just mention two, if I might, that I think are extremely useful. One of them, these are new. One of them is a company that we bought for about $50 million a couple of years ago in New York called Shake Law. They had perfected a electronic document service, an app, with electronic signature with your finger. So many people have probably used DocuSign, and that's a whole different thing. This is like DocuSign on steroids. So we bought this company, and we've made this app, which is called Forms, available free. So you can literally, on your phone, pull up, let's say you're a wholesaler, and you have located a property, but you don't really control it yet, but you want to shop it. So you could literally pull up a little non-disclosure agreement on your phone, enter a little bit of information, sign it with your finger, hand it to the other person, have them sign it, and then you could safely share with them the information about the property.
Wow.
And so that is an app. It's called Forms. We've made it possible for anyone that requests it from you to receive that Forms app for free.
Wow.
And as a kind of a way to get to know some of the things we're doing. So Forms, write that down and be sure and ask Glenn for access to the Forms app. The second thing is in response to the fact that people spend a lot of money with lawyers getting their entities set up, their corporations, their LLCs set up, or they try to do it themselves, and they may or may not do it right. There's a lot that's involved. I mean, the steps to go through can be done, but we would all love to have a competent corporate attorney set up our LLC.
Certainly.
And so we thought about that, and last year we launched a new product. It's called Launch. And Launch is a kind of a flat fee service. So instead of a monthly service, it actually is a flat fee to have a team of lawyers consult with you, advise you, set up your corporation or your entity, and then stay with you for 3 months to actually give you 3 months of the LegalSheild bundle. And it's a flat fee of $145.
Wow.
It sounds insane because it includes 3 months of the LegalSheild plan. Now, it doesn't include the state filing fees, and you'll have to get your own EIN number, although they'll be happy to do that for another $60. So for well less than $200, you can have a competent team of corporate attorneys hold your hand and do all the filing for an entity. And as you know, many times we'll do partnerships with people, and we may set up an entity just for that deal.
Right.
And maybe a multi-member LLC or something else. And so we have corporations and entities coming and going, and to be able to budget for that and have a team of lawyers do that for you, we're very excited about this Launch product. So that's another word to write down, is Launch.
Good stuff. So
those are some of the other things, aside from just the monthly legal plan, that we've sort of bundled together for the benefit of investors. And we have probably in the Metro Atlanta area now, we really just put this together, started putting it together about 2 years ago, and I would say we have at least 1,000 investors who are using this specialized bundle.
Wow, that is good stuff.
And the best part is the discount, but I guess you'll tell me about that in a minute, huh?
So Tyler Sherman, how you doing, Tyler? Thanks for watching. He says, put the poster closer to the camera. We cannot see it. That's the idea, Tyler. No, but he's going to make sure you get all the information that you need to make a decision.
And by the way, thank you. That was Tyler that called me a minute ago.
Oh, okay.
I didn't have my ringer off, so I'll call you a little later.
All right, Tyler, he's on the show. He's on the show. All right. I think that's what we had. Oh, Dennis we did say that. Dennis said post the links and information concerning the services. Okay, yeah, we'll certainly make sure we do that. So, with what I'd use LegalSheild for, I want to tell another quick story, just to emphasize the ability to be able to have it used in different states. I was purchasing a property back in Detroit, where I'm from, some years ago. It had to be like 10 years ago, and the gentleman that I was buying the property from, he sent me his contract. I sent them mine. You know, we were going back and forth trying to negotiate on whose contract we were going to use. Mm-hmm. And because I'm in Georgia, he's in Michigan.
That happens a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody's got their own paperwork.
Right, and that's really what the case was. So we agreed. You know, I told him I would have my attorney draw it up, and it would come from my attorney, and we agreed on the terms. So some of his terms and my terms would merge into one contract. So it would be in the best interest of us both. And that took maybe a day to get that done, and I didn't have to pay anything extra for that. So, and that was actually me communicating with the attorney in Michigan, because that's where I was buying the property from.
Right.
You know, so, and I'm in Georgia, and I was referred to an attorney there that would do the same thing for me. You know, just review the contract to make sure, because I was buying in Michigan, it, you know, coincided with all the state laws and things like that.
So you were in Georgia, and you called your law firm here in Georgia.
Yes.
And said, I have this deal I'm doing in Michigan. And so they said, we'll call our law firm in Michigan.
Yes.
And hook you up.
Absolutely.
And so that all happened seamlessly behind the scenes.
Definitely, yes.
And it still ended up being no cost, or just covered by your membership.
Yes, covered by my membership.
Right.
I was like, wow.
That's awesome.
Wow. Like, you know, I just thought about that. I'm like, wow, yeah, that is a major benefit to be able to have something like that.
To cross state lines. It
Definitely.
absolutely is. And I really don't know how to do it otherwise. So you have to rely on a friend, or do you know a lawyer in Detroit? Or
right,
and you know,
right.
when a lawyer gets an out-of-town client, they start rubbing their hands
Right.
together, because they feel like they got you over the barrel. I mean,
Yes,
and don't
yes.
misunderstand, I love lawyers, especially mine, right?
Right.
So, but I think it'd be true to say that most people, you know, they certainly have they're wary of lawyers. They certainly have had a few tough experiences dealing with lawyers in their life, at least at our age. And so the fact is that it all changes when you have your team of lawyers and you're not thinking about what the bill is.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
we're talking about a lot of sort of generalities and not really so much specifics. And I guess Tyler tells us you can't read this sign, but there are at least 20 things on this sign, like lawsuits, landlords, tenants, debts, growing your business, IRS. Who do you turn to when the IRS sends you a letter? Your accountant, sure, but what about a tax attorney? So all those things are included in there, and it almost sounds, well, it certainly does sound too good to be true. That you really have legal help on any legal matter that you face, personally or business-wise. And that doesn't mean it's all going to be free, but it does mean that you'll at least get a tremendous discount if it's not completely covered at no charge. So it's a safety. It's like a safety net, really,
Correct.
for your business and your life, in my opinion.
It is. You know, and I think about, you know, several other situations that I had. Like for the first time I was sued by someone, and scared the heck out of me. I was like, you know, and I heard some of my investor buddies from years ago. They said, "Well, you're doing real estate. If nobody sues you, you're not doing anything." I said, "Yeah, I don't want to be sued." But I got a piece of paper in the mail where a lady was suing me for a misunderstanding that we had. She was supposed to be making the mortgage payments on a deal that she bought, and I was actually helping her with. And she thought that I was going to be responsible for making the payments. And I'm like, no, that's your house. I'm just showing you what you need to do to go through the process. So she sued me, and I received this paper, and I was frantic. Like, what do I do? Like, I mean, I don't know how to handle a lawsuit. And it just dawned on me, like, wait a minute, call LegalSheild and see what they'll say. Sent over the paperwork. The guy told me, he said, well, as long as you have documents, because we did have a contract, showing that you weren't responsible, or just something showing that you know that you weren't responsible in everything that you did, send all that over and show that you weren't responsible for it. Sent over the documents. She didn't have an attorney. This was the thing. She didn't have an attorney, so my attorney contacted her. She found out I hired an attorney, or at least she thought I hired an attorney, not realizing I already had one. So she went and hired an attorney. When my attorney contacted the attorney that she eventually hired, he realized, the one that she hired realized that she didn't have a case. So while I was fearful and afraid, we were scheduled to go to court. They called me right before we were ready to go to court. He said, her attorney realizes that she doesn't have a case. She was responsible for the information. You take care of the papers on her own. Mm-hmm. There's no purpose in going to court.
So they actually, in this case, they advise you. They listen to you.
Absolutely.
They advise you. They did research. They asked for the documents. They reviewed the documents, and then they contacted, probably by letter, but maybe they called the opposing party, and they did all that. And that's just some of the examples of things that are 100% covered, and therefore you got no bill for that.
Not a bill at all. Not a bill at all. See, now, in my thinking, she was suing me for like $8,000. I thought when I first received the paper, I have to pay her. And I was preparing to pay $8,000 because I didn't know any better. I was ignorant. I'm like, okay, well, she says I owe her. Although I know I don't want to get any trouble, so I'm just going to pay. I said, wait, let me call these LegalSheild people and see what they say about that.
Well, I don't know about you, but I don't have enough time to become an expert in lawsuits and
I don't either.
Bankruptcies and all these things that they have lawyers for.
Right.
But I think that in the first 45 years of my life before I knew about this service, I felt like I was going to have to get some expertise in order to be able to deal with all those things.
Yes.
But then I learned that secret that a lot of wealthy people know, and that is that you delegate. You hire people to handle things, and it's and up until the LegalSheild system came about, that might mean a $3,000 retainer for an attorney, $3,000 a month, right? $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month. I still meet people that say, "Well, I have an attorney on retainer for that for $3," and I always ask, "How much does you pay?" And how much do you pay them? And I also will sometimes hear people will say, well, I have an attorney. I like to use my attorney, and I don't want them to stop. And I say, look, that's awesome. You are very lucky to have somebody that you like. But how much is that person an hour? Well, if they're $300 an hour, let's say, do you think in a year you could divert 1 hour of the time that you spend paying that attorney for? Could you, if you had LegalSheild for a whole year, if you had a law firm, do you think you could move 1 hour from that attorney bill? That would cover your LegalSheild for a whole year.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, it's for people that have attorneys, and I know there are plenty of people watching here, and there are attorneys watching here, and we have a tremendous number of attorneys who have LegalSheild, and firms that offer it to their attorneys and their employees. Yes. Because just like a doctor and a nurse have health insurance, this makes sense even if you are an attorney, because you certainly don't want to represent yourself, and you don't want to use your firm resources to represent the folks that work at the firm. It would be a bad idea anyway, and it would also take people away from making money. So we even find there are a lot of law firms in Atlanta, some big names that actually have LegalSheild in the employee benefits of their firm. Which this really doesn't relate to us, but it might to someone who's watching. LegalSheild came about as an employee benefit, and right now we are in the benefits package of over 100,000 employers, including now the state of Georgia, the city of Atlanta, and the city of Sandy Springs where I live, plus FedEx and, I don't know, 99,000 more.
So your employers, you want to offer a benefit to your employees, definitely get in contact with Mr. Charlie so you can add this as a benefit.
Exactly. And Glenn is a enthusiastic customer and a user and a recommender, and we're very grateful for that.
Absolutely.
And so I sort of, you can certainly contact him, and he can get the information to me. And I mentioned that about the employees to bring up one last really interesting point, and that is that working with LegalSheild over the last few years, we have gotten permission to offer those employee benefit discounts to the members of the real estate investor community. Now, normally that's not possible. So if you have a friend who's a LegalSheild rep, it's excellent. I work closely with many of them, but the discount that we referred to earlier, which is pretty significant. It's about $17 a month. It's a 27% discount. Wow. We're able to offer that through in the real estate community through the connections of people like Glenn and some of the local
Absolutely,
folks.
absolutely. So contact me and I'll get you a discount.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but $17 a month would add up to a lot of money at the end of the year. At least you can take Mama for a nice meal.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we have Tyler Sherman had some more questions that he asked. He asked, is the plan tax deductible?
I can't give tax advice. Wouldn't anyway. Ask your tax attorney or your accountant. But professional services are generally regarded as deductible, and certainly attorney fees are deductible. And so I can't say yes, but ask your accountant.
See, that's one of those guys know who's learned a lot from having attorneys. We're not attorneys.
No, but I mean, really, Tyler makes a very good point, and that is that just go ahead and calculate what that deduction is worth, the $300 or $400 a year that you're going to spend on this. And I didn't mention it, but if you have another identity theft plan, and a lot of people are spending $50 and more dollars a month now trying to protect their identity after the Equifax breach and everything. Remember, this bundle has that in it. It has by far the strongest plan in the market. So you can cancel that, and a lot of people can pay for their LegalSheild membership just with what they were spending on identity theft.
Absolutely, absolutely. He also says, my mother used LegalSheild to evict a tenant. The matter was complicated because the tenant declared bankruptcy. LegalSheild helped with all of the steps, and the tenant is no longer in the property. That is great to hear. I had a situation similar to that.
There's a combination of a bankruptcy and an eviction and a tenant, and boy, we know the games that get played there, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I had a tenant that filed some paperwork in the federal court so she can delay her time being evicted. And my attorney said, well, they have to review it in the federal court before they can evict her. But my attorney was able to help expedite that process.
Right.
So I was like, wow. Yeah, because some people are professional tenants, as we call them. Then Tyler says, my friend used LegalSheild to help her with an issue with her property manager. The property manager was collecting the rent but not giving it to her. Wow. She hadn't received rent for over 90 days from the property manager. LegalSheild sent a letter to the property manager. She received all of her money within 30 days. Great testimony, Tyler. You should be on the show next.
Tyler's a very experienced investor.
He
would be a good guest.
Definitely, yeah. We're definitely going to talk to Tyler. But that's good, though. It's good to hear that people are using the service, and it's truly a benefit. So it's not just you and I sharing our stories, that people really understand that are using it, that it's a major benefit to have as a tool in your toolbox.
And I think Tyler's only had it for a year or so, maybe 2 years.
Okay.
So you've had it 20 years, I've had it 13. The more the word gets out, and the more stories there are, stories like those where investors have really saved a lot of money or made a lot of money or just solved a big problem or limited the hassle in their lives, the more of those stories that get out, that's what sells. We have a saying in our business: facts tell, but stories sell. And Glenn, we have a list of a couple pages of just one-line quotes of how investors have used LegalSheild, and if you'd like to, distribute that to your audience, or we could put it up online where people can,
yes, we certainly can
read that and just get some ideas about whether it might or might not work for them.
Good. We definitely do that.
We need some quotes from you on that.
I certainly will give you my quotes because I have tons of them.
Yeah.
Tyler says, I talked about Tyler being on the show. He said to call his agent.
Call his lawyer, right?
Right, call his lawyer.
By the way, we do have entertainment lawyers. People sometimes say, well, do you have every kind of lawyer? Mm-hmm. Well, we either have them or we will get them because the commitment, our part of the agreement with a member is that we will provide competent, experienced lawyers on any topic, in any need. So even if I know they recently added entertainment lawyers because it's a big entertainment city, right, obviously. But intellectual property, all sorts of oddball areas of law, they can help with.
Right. My son's an entertainer, and years ago we had our attorneys review his entertainment contracts. So I mean, they certainly have the expertise to do that. I mean, my son, when you talked about having a teenager that drives and they get in trouble with tickets and things like that, he was on my plan, and luckily he hadn't turned 24 yet. Or is it 25 now?
It's 26 now.
It's 26 now.
Yeah.
Wow, he just missed it by a year.
Oh.
2 years. Yeah. So he had it for quite a few years, and saved us a ton of money on him getting the tickets that he got driving as well. But he's an excellent driver, though. I will say that.
I tell you, but it's a peace of mind thing, isn't it? When you're a parent of a teenager, especially a boy,
yes,
but even more a girl, especially when you've got kids out of town or out of state at school. Mm-hmm. And that brings up a good point. It's a little less expensive for an individual who doesn't have a family. It's under $40 a month. It's around $35 a month for that for that bundle. But for a family, it's only about $44 a month, mm-hmm, and that includes all the kids until their 26th birthday, as long as they're not married.
Right.
So if they're in school, away at school, or living in the home, they're covered under dad or mom's plan. If you have a disabled child, they are covered for life. And so it is a pretty comprehensive plan. And those of us who have raised kids, mine are 25 and 30 now, I can tell you it's been a great source of peace of mind. I won't tell the story, but when my son was 17 at Kennesaw Mountain High School, he got 4 tickets in one stop.
Wow.
And, when he left the courthouse, 35 minutes after he got there,
wow,
he had 1 ticket and no points. And that's because the lawyer had talked to the solicitor,
yes,
and gotten it all worked out. Now, my son was a little upset. He was a senior in high school. He wanted to miss first period at least, right? But he didn't even get to miss first period. He had to go back to school.
That is amazing. I mean, it's amazing the benefit that, again, like you mentioned before, that a lot of people don't understand the benefits, and nobody explained it to them properly for them to understand how, especially those of us that have our own business and we do business, the benefits of having an attorney or a team of attorneys that will represent you in any situation, because situations come up, and it doesn't mean that you've done anything wrong. You're innocent until proven guilty.
Well, I tell you, life's complicated enough, and sometimes when I'm doing an employee benefits enrollment, I'll just ask 3 questions. I'll say, is life getting more complicated or less complicated?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Are lawyers getting more expensive or less expensive? Mm-hmm. And is identity theft getting worse or is it getting better?
This is correct.
And everyone nods, and I say that's why I'm here, to help with those things.
Absolutely.
So it's a very fulfilling business to be in. By the way, we are growing so fast, we are hiring people part-time to help us, especially people with experience in a niche. If you're a fireman, if you're a teacher, if you're a real estate investor, that means that you can share with like-minded people. And so we have a tremendous referral program. Every customer is automatically in the referral program, and when they recommend it, they receive money or gift cards. And if they want to take it a little bit more seriously than that, they can add hundreds or thousands of dollars a month to their budget just by recommending something that they're using and that they're going to recommend anyway. That's how I got in this business. I recommended it to so many people in 2005 that they finally approached me and said, why don't you want to get compensated for all these referrals. And I said, you know what I said? I said, no, I'm too busy. I have a full-time job, and I'm a full-time real estate investor, too. I have 6 rental properties, and I really don't have time.
Right.
But they were smart, and they called me up a few months later and told me how much money that I had, I could have been paid if I were compensated on the referrals, if I were in the referral program.
Absolutely.
And is it okay if I say how much they gave me when I finally did?
Absolutely.
The second 6 months of 2005, I made $8,000 in referral fees.
Wow.
And that was all I was doing, was talking to other investors and telling them what my experience.
Yeah.
And,
see, the thing that I have a biggest issue with, I don't like to pay for stuff I don't use, and I don't like to leave money on the table.
I couldn't agree more.
So, it just makes sense. That's why, for those of you that are watching, for those of you that don't know, we offer full-service real estate consulting services. The Jabri team, which is our team, and we've added LegalSheild as one of the benefits of working with us. So we offer, tons of different things. We help you get started in real estate, help you get the funding and all that. And we partner with LegalSheild to offer that as a benefit to you as well.
With that great discount.
Absolutely.
And that just to be clear, we have a very comprehensive field network, and it may be that a lot of people on the show, watching the show, know a rep or two, and just be sure and ask them, are they affiliated with the real estate investor program, and can they offer you that discount? Because we don't want you to miss out on that. And if you do have LegalSheild, there are probably people that have bought it over the years that are watching. You can actually come to us, and we can roll you into that discount.
Yes, that makes sense.
And also fill in that bundle that I showed, which has 10 different components, not just the legal plan and the identity theft plan, but 8 more, including the forms that we discussed.
I definitely got to look at that.
Yeah, I tell you, I use it all the time. I was at, the reason, by the way, they call me the Mountain Man is that in this,
we didn't get
to that, but I was an investor pretty seriously for about 8 or 10 years, and then I got out really kind of right before the crash, so my timing was very good. And I focused on my LegalSheild business for many years, but about 3 or 4 years ago, I got back into investing, but this time it's on my terms. So I just do what I want. I buy and sell mountain property in North Georgia, Tennessee, and North Carolina. I help investors put their money in the mountains. I do some private lending in between projects. I inventory properties up in the mountains, and in my business, it's become essential. And as I said, I bought one piece of property subsequent to a conversation with a developer. I made a deal with a developer. I felt like he didn't do his end of the deal. He actually agreed that it didn't work out the way we had agreed, and we shook on it. I took that agreement to make it right, and I called my lawyer on Monday, and I explained it. The lawyer wrote a very nice letter. See, lawyer letters don't have to be mean, right? Or nasty. He wrote a very nice letter. It had 50 lawyers' names on the letterhead. Right, because this is not from a law firm. A lawyer is from a law firm. Right. He wrote that letter to the developer and said, it's unfortunate what happened. It's great that you two were able to agree on a solution. Would you mind putting that in writing? And let me tell you, he wrote, I called him on Monday. I had the draft on Wednesday. I approved it. It went with signature required or requested or whatever. He got it on Friday. He called me up. Said, why did you give it to the lawyers? Now we have to let the lawyers deal with it. I said, no, Ed, it's not that way at all. We agreed on a solution, and my lawyer just wanted to have it documented. Absolutely. He said, we're doing another sale, we're doing another liquidation auction tomorrow. Come up, and I'll take care of you. And that next day, I bought a $50,000 piece of property for $8,900.
Wow.
So that letter made me about $50,000.
That's huge. That's huge.
So it's about opportunities, not just about solving problems and protection.
Right. That's good stuff. I mean, that's a fascinating story. And again, that's one of the major things that I think people miss is how LegalSheild can protect them and benefit them at the same time.
I can't imagine doing this business now after doing it for so long. I mean, I just automatically am on the phone. In fact, one of my thrusts, and you're helping with this, is to make the legal community, the lawyers that serve us, more investor friendly. And that is that there are a lot of things that we do that a general lawyer may or may not understand very well. And so we're working hard, and the more investors we have on board, then the more we're able to affect that and bring that expertise in. And so we've got some highly qualified and competent and respected attorneys now who understand investor stuff very well. It wasn't always that way. And so in the early days, we had to sometimes explain to the lawyers what we were doing.
Right.
I can remember more than once that they said, "You can't do that. That's not legal." But then when they looked into it, they found out that indeed it was.
Absolutely.
Because we're all in our business, we're always at the leading edge of creative ways to do deals, right? And but that's another hidden benefit of the whole LegalSheild idea. This keeps you safe, because when you have a legal team, you're not going to get out into the gray zone. Right. Because they won't let you. So
that's true. That's
true.
A
lot of people out there flying by the seat of their pants, and they're bobbing and weaving and shucking and jiving, and they're making deals, and they're doing things. And I was that way because I couldn't afford lawyers.
So was I.
Back in the day,
way.
Right? So it's much better to have a team to support you in all those parts of the business where you don't have time to become an expert.
When you realize, and that's the thing, I'm big on that. In areas that I know I don't have the expertise, why not hire the people that have the expertise? I tried painting a house once.
Sheetrock. Right. Don't tell me about finishing sheetrock. That's something that
like there are experts that do this.
Yeah.
Hire the experts. What is the lawyer saying? The lawyer who
represents himself
has a fool for a client.
Has a fool for a client. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to make sure that you have that Forms app up and running, because I tell you, I love you. I use it all the time, and I started to mention. I was up in Ellijay working on a property that I bought, and the guy who was loading the truck at Lowe's in Ellijay, he said, "So do y'all buy houses?" And I was with my contractor, and we said, "Yeah." He says, "Well, I know this house. I would love to buy it, but the bank took it back. The floor's falling in." And I said, "That's exactly the kind of house we like to buy."
Those are the ones we are waiting to find.
Yeah, I said, "So if you want to," I said, "while we're up here, we'll go by and look at it." And he hesitated a little bit because you can understand, you didn't know us.
Right.
So I immediately said, "Well, why don't we do this? I'll just write up a little non-disclosure here that will protect you. That way you can feel comfortable giving us that information." And it was not too long after we had gotten Forms, which it just lives on your iPhone. It can be on your tablet, it could just be on your Apple or your Android. It's just an app.
Okay.
And so we literally put his name in. We put the address of the house. He put it in, and then we agreed it would be confidential and that he wouldn't get cut out of any deal.
Right.
And we signed it with our fingers. And then he gave us the address, and we looked at the house. And I'd like to say we bought it, but we didn't. But, but it certainly simplified the process.
Absolutely. I mean, especially being, you said you're in the mountains in Ellijay, right?
Ellijay.
Yeah. So I mean, it made the process, I'm sure, much easier to now be able to go see it as opposed to not seeing it at all. It gave you the option.
Exactly, and of course, for me to get a non-disclosure on paper in Ellijay, Georgia, when all I've got is my iPhone, I'm up there working. So,
right.
So it really is a great case study for that. Although I've heard that now that we're putting this out to all the investors, some of them are making their offers. They're putting houses under contract. They're doing lien waivers. They're doing hold harmless agreements.
Wow.
Think about that. Imagine a contractor who wants to give you an estimate, and you say, "Well, great, can't wait for you to give me an estimate. If you don't mind signing this is just a hold harmless agreement so that if you hurt yourself while you're on my property, I'm not eligible. And by the way, there's a lien waiver in there."
Yeah. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Folks never realize how important that stuff is too.
Well, it comes with years of experience. So there's some people in town. Actually, I learned that one from another investor who learned it the hard way.
Yes.
So
that's good stuff.
you mentioned being sued. Unfortunately, I've never been sued. I've also never been audited.
Yeah.
And don't want to be.
But just I won't say it though. I haven't been audited. But I don't want to invite anything.
I will say this, having brought it up. If a LegalSheild member is audited, they have, at no cost, 50 hours of a tax attorney's time, and they will even attend the audit with you.
Wow.
And those guys are not $300 an hour. They're $600, $800.
Absolutely.
They're very expensive. Yeah. So, never been audited. Hope I never am. But I do know this: I'm going to have a tax attorney in my corner to help me through the whole thing
at all times. That's good. That's good.
I prefer to dwell on the positive things,
making
money, not the negative ones. So I think. I think it's a wise move for people. That's why I do it. That's why I sell it. But at heart, and inside and outside, I'm an investor. I always have been. I always will be. All I do now is mountain property because I love it and because I can. But I sure do use this service. One of my good friends, Joe Thompson, who is pretty well known in Atlanta as an investor,
Joe Thompson.
He's had it about 18 years.
Yes.
And he says, I work them like a swayback mule. I work those lawyers hard. And he does. I just encourage people, don't buy it, put it on the shelf. Use it. Yeah. Because when you use it, then you'll get more out of it.
Absolutely. We have Mr. Dennis Norton says, again, with the Forms app, are the forms available for most legal documents or exclusive?
It's interesting that you asked that. Dennis, was it?
Yes.
There is a set of templates. A template means that you can paste through a form and actually just fill in, like the non-disclosure agreement is a template. We have state-specific forms. So we have defined forms by state. We don't have as many real estate forms in there as I'd like, but the great news is that you can actually put any form that you have, you can copy and paste anything you want into the Forms app and use it yourself.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I'll get with Dennis. I know Dennis personally. Dennis is a really good friend of mine, so I'll make sure once you show me how that works, I'll make sure I get with him and show him how that works.
And keep in mind, the people like Glenn who have a lot of forms and have developed paperwork that works, if you have a relationship with them and you're able to use those forms, you can drop those right into the Forms app.
Wow.
The paperwork. So if you have a contract or if you've been to some training and you've received forms for that, you get an electronic form, you can put it in your Forms app and customize it.
Wow. Good stuff. Well, that's our show. They're telling me it's time for us to wrap. But again, I want to thank you so much, Mr. Charlie, for joining us today.
It is my pleasure.
It has been an absolute pleasure and an honor to have you here to share your expertise and knowledge on LegalSheild. So hopefully you folks take advantage of the opportunity to get involved, take advantage of the service that is offered, and all the benefits that come along with it. So if you want to reach out to Mr. Fowler, you can actually give us a call. Call our office at 833-38-JABREE. It's 385-2273. I want to make sure I get the Jabri part right. 833-38-JABREE. 385. Am I still saying it wrong? 833-38-JABREE. 833-385-2273. And that's extension 701. And you'll be able to get connected directly to Mr. Charlie, and he'll be able to help you out with the service. So, guys, thank you all for watching. Don't forget March 10th. March 10th? I think it's March 10th. We'll get it right. March 10th, we have Chantel Owens is going to be with us at the Real Life Real Estate Investing event at the Coconut Grill. Stay tuned for that information that's coming out. And we also have a class coming up with Ms. Chantel at the end of the month on the 23rd or March 23rd and 24th. We'll make sure we get that marketing information out to you guys soon. So, again, thanks for watching the show. Thanks again, Mr. Charlie. We look forward to seeing you all real soon.